한 번만 더 그딴 소리 내면 죽어.
Three desperate robbers burst into a nightclub, taking all the hostesses and patrons hostage. In a bizarre twist, they kick off a talent show, fall in love with a beautiful woman, and start handing out the stolen cash, catapulting them to the pinnacle of their lives overnight. Three brothers, raised in an orphanage, find life increasingly tough. Eating instant noodles is a challenge, and life seems meaningless. They decide to band together and rob an armored car if they fail. They're ready to face the consequences. Two-man, book in hand, stumbles through a deal with some Russians, managing to acquire a few guns. In his excitement, Ji-ju nearly sends everyone to meet their maker. They stake out the armored cars robbed from day until the freezing, hungry depths of night, finally waiting until dawn. Ji-ju, getting up for a pee, spots the armored car and immediately wakes his brothers. Their plan is simple and brutal. Ji-ju pretends there's a roadblock to stop the car while the boss and Do-man smash the window and tie up the guards inside. They excitedly transfer the money bags, oblivious to the surveillance camera that has recorded everything. The vehicle's license plate is captured clearly, and the police quickly track them down to a seaside dock where they're hiding. Because Ji-ju forgot to pay a deposit, the boat meant to pick them up never arrives. Just as they plan their next move, the police show up. Do-man tries to drive away but crashes into a roadblock, trapped. With cops in front and no escape behind, their luck seems to run out. Suddenly, fortune strikes. A rich young man playing around in his car with a woman panics at the sound of gunfire, bolts from his car, and runs straight into the robbers. The leader, seizing the moment, takes the couple hostage and forces Chief on to let them pass. The trio, with their two hostages, dash wildly, with the police hot on their heels. In a panic, Do-man drives to a nightclub. They rush inside, shooting and dodging as they go.
저쪽 나이트 안으로 들어갔네. 지금 연말이라 사람도 많을 거 아니야. 이쪽으로 손님 5분 들어가십니다. 대박 준비해주세요.
The wait staff, mistaking the customers for role players, enthusiastically arrange rooms for them amidst the deafening music in the lobby. Unaware that the group includes several robbers, frustrated, the leader fires his gun into the air, sparking cheers instead of fear as the crowd reacts with bewildering slowness.
야, 나와.
뭐야 이 새끼야 부르기 전에 오지 말라고 그랬잖아. 이벤트 하냐? 응? 나가 새끼야.
이게 이벤트로 있냐?
They gathered everyone in the lobby. Now, with the cash in hand but nowhere to spend it, the three brothers feel utterly trapped as fire trucks and ambulances converge on the entrance. Chief consulted with other nightclub staff to find alternative exits.
저 돌아가면 있기는 한데 거기는 술짝으로 꽉꽉 차가지고 포크레인이 와도 못 뚫습니다.
야, 니들은 소방 점검도 안 받냐?
아니 대한민국에 이걸로 안 되는 게 어딨어요?
Unable to storm in and rescue the hostages, they could only extract fingerprints from the vehicle to identify the robbers, planning to have their families convince them to surrender. Worn out, the trio summoned the chef to prepare a lavish spread of grilled meats. Surrounded by piles of cash, they indulged in the fragrant barbecue and sipped fine wine, reflecting on the moment as the peak of their lives. After eating and drinking their fill, Ji-ju breaks down, lamenting the uselessness of their loot. In-han made a decision. Let's end it all together.
먼저 쏘면 안 돼. 동시에 같이 쏴야 돼.
기정, 가만히 있어, 가만히.
움직이지 마! 삑사리 나면 죽지도 못하고 아프기만 해.
Amidst this despair, the bar phone rings. Chief-on wanted to negotiate, but In-han, uninterested, hung up the phone and even cut the phone line. Ji-ju and Do-man, not ready to end their lives after 30 years of hardship, argue that they should enjoy the offerings of the Roman holiday nightclub, a kingdom where they can live without limits, surrounded by alcohol, meat, and beauties. Why not relish a few days before their demise? Persuaded by everyone, In-han decided to let them enjoy life for a week. He ordered everyone to hand over their cell phones for easier management and chose a representative from among them. Ji-ju encourages eager sign-ups. Nightclub owner Dongshin volunteers first, but the In-han dismisses him, choosing a curly-haired waiter instead. Do-man numbers everyone, discovering unexpected talents, among them the stunning No. 25, with her delicate beauty, and No. 27, a bald man with a seductive voice, puzzlingly working as a bodyguard. Ji-ju asked Dongshin to install a TV and connect all the surveillance cameras, a task Dongshin was unfamiliar with. Just as he was about to delegate the task to his subordinates, the robbers stopped him. In-han, frustrated with his disobedience, ordered the representative to teach Dongshin a harsh lesson, a stark contrast to Dongshin's dominant behavior earlier that day. This unlucky rich young man was about to enjoy a seaside tryst with a beautiful woman when he ran into the robbers and ended up being taken hostage to the nightclub. As the robbers feasted, he was left with only a bowl of thin porridge and a cold, hard floor for a bed. Shivering from cold and hunger, desperate, he begged the robbers to let him call his father, a well-known tycoon, willing to pay any ransom. However, the robbers, disdainful of such pleas, mockingly pretended to execute him, causing him to faint from fear. The situation escalated as the police chief and the SWAT team commander arrived due to his high-profile status. The chief took over the case from Chief On and planned a possible assault if there was no response from inside. However, Chief On, concerned for the hostages' safety, still hoped to negotiate. Subordinates relayed information that the three robbers had been abandoned at an orphanage as children and had no family, except for In-han, who uniquely had a sister who was adopted. Meanwhile, an unexpected development occurred inside the nightclub. A woman, 33, stood up and headed for the door, intent on going home to care for her child. The robbers threatened her with a gun to sit down, questioning why she would be in such a place if she had a child. She declared it might be better to just kill her and revealed that she was being coerced by the nightclub owner, Dongshin, who forced her to pay off a high-interest loan. Dongshin forced her to sign a contract to work off her debt through prostitution. As she persisted in trying to leave, the robbers fired a shot, startling the police outside. Chief-on rushed to the door, knocking furiously, hoping to negotiate with the robbers. Learning that no hostages were hurt, he urged the robbers to surrender, warning that the longer they waited, the worse it would be for them. Surrendering now could still spare their lives. But the robbers didn't trust him. Left with no other option, he asked the robbers to leave their own phones behind so that any further demands could be discussed.
일본 들으면 언제든 나랑 통화할 수 있다.
In-han, having acquired the contract that bound 33 to servitude, decided to pay off her debt. Having nothing else but plenty of cash, he tossed a bag of money directly at Dongshin.
2억 5천. 2억은 팁이야.
저요?
됐지?
이거 생각보다 좀 많은데 이거.
Dongshin, holding the money, couldn't believe his luck, but his fortune was short-lived. In-han tore up the contract and, shaking his head at his brothers, reminded them of their true nature as robbers. Poor Dongshin's fleeting joy ended swiftly as both his money and wallet were taken from him, and he even endured a beating. The next day, In-han called Chief On, stating the hostages were hungry and requesting food deliveries for at least 3 to 4 days. In exchange, he would release 20 hostages. To decide which 20 to release, the robbers organized a unique talent show based on the most compelling reasons given.
저는 내일 출근해야 합니다.
신랑이 경찰이에요.
제가 주말에 결혼을 하는데요.
Excuses varied widely. The bald bodyguard wanted to return to his whimpering puppy, nearly provoking the robbers to fire their guns. Others, overly cutesy or prepared with lengthy speeches, showcased a variety of talents. Among the most despised were 3 high school students who had come for free beer, thinking it was a party. And then there was Dongshin, who, defiant and annoyed at the robbers for invading his territory, claimed they were nothing without their guns. He challenged them to a one-on-one fight, only to be swiftly knocked senseless by In-han's combination punches.
앞으로 혁임으로 모시고 싶습니다.
완전 멋있다.
싫어 인마. 들어가.
열심히 하겠습니다.
When it was 33's turn, In-han passed she without even letting she speak, revealing a layer of favoritism in the selection. After 20 hostages were released, the media swarmed in, and unexpectedly, many spoke well of the robbers, noting that no one was hurt and that the robbers even encouraged them to stay in school. This turn of events caught the public off guard. Meanwhile, a tycoon, seeing the news and infuriated that his son wasn't among those released, instructed his subordinates to expedite efforts. Believing that there was nothing in South Korea that couldn't be resolved with money, the police arranged for the released hostages to give statements. But no! 33 requested to check on his child first. It turned out that In-han had secretly stuffed money into 33's clothing, allowing she an opportunity to go home first. When No. 33 asked why he was being treated so specially, In-han didn't answer. If Chief-on were aware of this situation, he might guess the reason. No. 33's age is similar to that of In-han's younger sister. The first time Chief-on saw his information, he was reminded of a past incident. Back when Chief-on was a rookie officer, a child was accused of stealing tteokbokki from a store that later caught fire due to the owner's negligence with the gas. The owner blamed the fire on the child, claiming deliberate arson. Chief-on tried to get the truth, but the child remained silent and ended up in juvenile detention. In fact, the real culprits were two gluttonous brothers, but a young In-han took the blame to protect them. Chief-on knew In-han was essentially a good-hearted person and didn't want the hostage situation to lead to irreversible consequences. He contacted the orphanage to find out about In-han's sister's adoption. The director mentioned that the siblings were very close and that the sister always followed In-han around. Shortly after In-han left juvenile detention, a Swiss couple adopted the sister for his sister's happiness. In-han agreed to the adoption, and since then, they have never seen each other again. Chief-on considered bringing the sister as a negotiator, but due to international complications, it wasn't feasible immediately. Because the robbers had safely released some hostages, the authorities decided not to provoke them and to meet their demands as much as possible. The robbers not only asked for water and food but also for playing cards. The hostages in Jeju spent the days playing cards, carefree. Do-man felt it was unbecoming to mingle so casually with the hostages and wanted to bring his brother back. In-han stopped him, saying they didn't have many days left to live and should live them as they wished. He asked Do-man if he had any wishes. Do-man expressed his desire to eat as much pizza as he wanted without worrying about the cost and to visit an amusement park, which he had never done. In-han called Chief-on to order pizzas for all the hostages, leading to an entire fleet of delivery drivers coming to the nightclub with pizzas. During the chaos, one hostage managed to kick Jeju and make a run for it, loudly expressing his exhilaration as he escaped. After escaping, the opportunist publicly maligned the robbers in the media, provoking In-han's wrath. He angrily called the police, demanding that they deliver the man within 24 hours and threatening to harm the other hostages if his demands were not met. The escapee, a speculative businessman with a skin thicker than the walls of the Blue House, scoffed at the robbers' demands, showing no concern for the potential deaths of others. When hostage families learned of this, they protested outside his home. Indifferent, the man continued golfing with his wife, dismissing the police and even threatening to sue them for trespassing. However, when the situation escalated, it was the tycoon who intervened, ensuring the businessman was returned to the nightclub. Once back, the crowd was eager to teach him a lesson, reflecting the sentiment that the wealthier one is, the worse they behave. In desperation, he pleaded for mercy, and one of the hostages suggested he make amends with money. Ultimately, he was forced to donate half of his 200 billion fortune to save his life, but Jeju still sought vengeance.
돌려.
Meanwhile, the nightclub celebrated with the remaining drinks and meat, hosting a party. As In-han watched the happy crowd, a new idea began to form in his mind. When Chief-on received his call, he felt In-han was asking for too much. Not satisfied with just food and drink, he even wanted to take a stroll outside. However, In-han correctly anticipated that Chief-on would relent. Eventually, Chief-on agreed to his request, seizing the opportunity to deliver supplies. Jeju and Do-man disguised themselves in tactical police gear and quietly slipped out. Finally getting a chance to fulfill their childhood dreams, they visited an amusement park and dined at a 5-star restaurant, eventually realizing that nothing tasted as good as instant noodles. The crowd at the nightclub was lively, collectively celebrating a lady's birthday. While waiting for the brothers to return, In-han also changed his clothes and took a quick stroll outside. This time, when Chief-on picked him up, In-han hadn't even specified where he wanted to go. Chief-on took him directly to his own home, inviting him to experience the warmth of a family meal. There, In-han was touched by the simplicity of family life when On's daughter mentioned unpaid tuition, a poignant reminder of the struggles of those at the bottom of society. The next morning, he asked Chief-on to take him to the seaside where his deceased wife and son were buried. Lacking the funds for medical treatment and even a proper burial, things that money could easily solve proved to be the hardest challenges for them. Meanwhile, top officials had made a deal that allowed for an aggressive police raid. all to rescue the tycoon's son. Returning to the nightclub, In-han saw the hostages enjoying themselves and decided it was time to end things. He announced his plan to release all hostages the next day and surrender. Chi-fon, relieved, received the call. Grateful that the ordeal was nearing a satisfactory conclusion, the morning after the celebrations, the tactical police arrived early to prepare for a potential assault on the nightclub.
오늘 9시에 강인한이 주점 차수한다고 말했잖아.
저 새끼들 한번 막 돌아서 다 갈겨볼 때 누가 알아? 마지막 순간 인질들이 무사히 풀려날 때까지 끝난 게 아니라고.
제발 부탁한다. 섣부른 행동하지 마.
9시까지만 기다립니다.
Unfortunately, due to the revelry the night before, everyone inside had woken up late, and their phones, accidentally soaked in water, didn't receive Chi-fon's warning calls. As time ran short, Chi-fon, unable to contact anyone inside, rushed to the entrance where In-han let him in. The SWAT team was already positioned, with snipers having accessed the building through ventilation ducts, while Chi-fon was explaining the evacuation process to everyone inside. A half-asleep and drunken Ji-ju, in an attempt to distribute money, waved a gun around carelessly. The police chief, watching through surveillance and mistaking this for a reneged agreement, ordered his officers to fire. The scene descended into chaos immediately. Chi-fon shouted for the officers to cease fire, but by then, Du-man had been shot in the leg, believing they had been trapped by the police. In-han retaliated by firing towards the ventilation ducts, and the front door was blown open. Amid the turmoil, with his injured brother and terrified hostages around him, In-han hesitated and ultimately decided to trust Chi-fon one last time. He released all the hostages, urging Ji-ju and Du-man to leave with them, but they refused to abandon him.
왜? 왜 씨발 형만 있는데 여기?
빨리 데리고 나가. 빨리 데리고 나가. 빨리. 이거 빨리 데리고 나가.
어떻게?
빨리 나가. 데리고 나가.
그게 꼭 살아서 나오셔야 돼요. 혹시 기다리고 있을게요. 기다릴게 동생.
In the final moments, Chi-fon stayed with In-han as the SWAT team prepared to storm in. With his assault rifle out of ammunition and only a handgun left, In-han told Chi-fon to leave, revealing his decision to end his own life. Chi-fon pleaded with him not to proceed, expressing regret akin to his unresolved guilt from a past fire incident where he couldn't prove In-han's innocence. Recognizing Chi-fon as the young officer who once trusted him, In-han appreciated the memory but remained resolved in his decision. Just then, Chi-fon's phone rang, bringing a momentary pause to their intense conversation.
Hello? 네 아들 잉트믹. 내 딸 선영강.
요가르. 강인아. 요가르. 강선영.
In court, all the hostages pleaded for leniency for the robbers, attesting that they had not been violent or malicious. The court, moved by these testimonies, opted for a more lenient approach. In prison, In-han reunited with his long-lost sister and met his niece for the first time.
삼촌.
Roman Holiday tells a seemingly simple story of bumbling robbers who end up cornered in a nightclub. With most of the narrative unfolding there, the first part of the film is filled with comedic moments, such as the bald bodyguard's delicate yelp, likely a reason many viewers chose to watch it. However, the latter part shifts to a more poignant reflection on life's trivial troubles and the opaque dealings of the powerful realities far removed from the ordinary person. The story leaves viewers with a sense of resignation to the hardships of the poor, yet also highlights the resilience required to persevere through life.